A chief executive officer. The CEO of a corporation or company typically reports to the board of directors and is charged with maximizing the value of the business, which may include maximizing the share price, market share, revenues, or another element. In the non-profit and government sector, SOs typically aim at achieving outcomes related to the organization's mission, such as reducing poverty, increasing literacy, etc. In the 21st century, top executives typically have technical degrees in science, management, engineering, or law. The responsibilities of an organization's CEO are set by the organization's board of directors or other authority, depending on the organization's structure. They can be far-reaching or quite limited and are typically enshrined in a formal delegation of authority regarding business administration. Typically, responsibilities include being a decision-maker on business strategy and other key policy issues. Leader, manager, and executor. The communicator role can involve speaking to the press and the rest of the outside world, as well as to the organization's management and employees. The decision-making role involves high-level decisions about policy and strategy. As an executive officer of the company, the CEO reports the status of the business to the board of directors, motivates employees, and drives change within the organization. As a manager, the CEO presides over the organization's day-to-day operations. The CEO is the person who is ultimately accountable for a company's business decisions, including those in operations, marketing, business development, finance, human resources, etc. The CEO of a company is not necessarily the owner or the head of the company. The CEO of a political party is often entrusted with fundraising, particularly for election campaigns. In some countries, there is a dual board system with two separate boards, one executive board for the day-to-day business and one supervisory board for control purposes. In these countries, the CEO presides over the executive board and the chairman presides over the supervisory board. And these two roles will always be held by different people. This ensures a distinction between management by the executive board and governance by the supervisory board. This allows for clear lines of authority. The aim is to prevent a conflict of interest and too much power being concentrated in the hands of one person. In the United States, the board of directors is often equivalent to the supervisory board, while the executive board may often be known as the executive committee. In the United States, and in business, the executive officers are usually the top officers of a corporation, the chief executive officer being the best known type. The definition varies. For instance, the California Corporate Disclosure Act defines executive officers as the 5 most highly compensated officers not also sitting on the board of directors. In the case of a sole proprietorship, an executive officer is the sole proprietor. In the case of a partnership, an executive officer is a managing partner, senior partner, or administrative partner. In the case of a limited liability company, executive officer is any member, manager, or officer. Depending on the organization, a CEO may have several subordinate executives to help run the day-to-day administration of the company, each of whom has specific functional responsibilities referred to as senior executives, executive officers, or corporate officers. subordinate executives are either given different titles in different organizations. But one common category of subordinate executive, if the CEO is also the president, is the vice president, chief financial officer and chief business officer. The public relations focused position of chief reputation officer is sometimes included as one such subordinate executive officer. But, as suggested by Anthony John Drow, CEO of Reputation Economy Advisors, it can also be seen as simply another way to add emphasis to the role of a modern-day CEO, where they are both the external face of and the driving force behind an organization culture. In the US, the term Chief Executive Officer is used primarily in business, whereas the term Executive Director is used primarily in the not-for-profit sector. These terms are generally mutually exclusive and refer to distinct legal duties and responsibilities. Implicit in the use of these titles is that the public not be misled and the general standard regarding their use be consistently applied. In the UK, Chief Executive and Chief Executive Officer are used in both business and the charitable sector. As of 2013, the use of the term Director for senior charity staff is deprecated to avoid confusion with the legal duties and responsibilities associated with being a charity director or trustee, which are normally non-executive roles. In the United Kingdom, the term Managing Director is often used in lieu of Chief Executive.